websites. Why? Because you have more chance. So you pitch to everybody, right? But you also need to think about how can I communicate the value of my game to them. Rock, paper, shotgun likes a bit of avant-garde, like a bit of artsy. They like that. So if you're going to pitch a game about, if you're going to pitch your game to them, that's going to be a lot easier than pitching a new card game to them, because a new card game, that's not really rock, paper, shotgun style. They'll play it, by the way, because they're cool people. But also think about what kind of speak do they use. Like, if you're going to pitch your game to the New York Times, which you also should do, because why not? It probably won't work, but you know, with Ridiculous Fishing, we thought it wouldn't work, and it did work. Do they know like all of the gaming terms? Like, are they aware what you mean when you say like, you know, it's an MMORPG with FPS elements and, you know, some inspirations from like games like Diablo 2. And we try and sort of be inspired by Tribes, you know, Starsheet's Tribe, the first one, not the second one, that wasn't quite as good. Like, there's going to be like, I don't know what is this person talking about? Like, how do I delete this email? So you think about who you're talking to, right? This is a really, really important one. This is the one I just asked you. What is my game? Now, what is my game sounds really simple. But like we just established, talking about what your game really is actually really, really hard. Nobody cares about 90% of what you're going to say. They care about two things. What is it? Is it a platformer? Is it a shooter? Is it an RDS game? And they don't actually really care about that. They just need context for what you're going to tell them next, which is, why should I be excited? What is it about this game that is special? What is it about this game that nobody has ever done before? What is it about this game that you've done better than anybody else? You don't need to make new games specifically, but if you're going to make an old game, make sure to do it better. And then when you do, make sure to let people know that it is better. Is this something you should discuss in like a mechanical way? Or are we talking about emotions? Do you pitch an emotional game? Or do you pitch mechanics? Do you pitch the theme of the game? Or do you pitch the gameplay? What do you pitch? What is special about your game? What angle do you take? We made a game about shooting fish with machine guns. We could tell them all the time about all sorts of things about how the mechanics work. In the end, the only thing that's important, if you want to talk about Ridiculous Fishing, you mention that you fish with machine guns. Because it's dumb. And people love talking about dumb stuff. With Luftrausers, we made a game about being the pilot in a super weapon airplane, which tells you enough about what we were trying to do. Like, this is a game that is going to try to make you feel badass. It's going to make you feel like a really, really good pilot in a really cool piece of airplane. That's all you really need to set a tone, and that's the pitch, right? So again, this is a really common problem. Don't tell people what's similar. If your game is a lot like Diablo 2, you don't have to say that. Just say it's an adventure game, and then say what's special about it. It's like Diablo 2, but you can race in cars. They talk about the cars. Don't tell me about Diablo 2. It's an adventure game where you can race in cars. And the next one is the most important one. Why am I pitching this? Yes, the answer is because I would please like not to starve and make money making this video game. I know. But that's not really the answer, because like we established at the start, if you wanted to earn money, you would probably not be right here. Right? The real reason is you are making a game that you think is interesting. Why do you think your game is interesting? Can you tell me?
Right.
Why do you think your game is interesting?
I think because I feel it's very addictive when you start playing it.
Okay, a lot of games are addictive. Why is your game addictive?
Because it's very simple.
It's very simple. A lot of games are very simple. Why is it being very simple addictive, and what is so simple about it?
You just run away with time without knowing it.
Okay, why do you run away with time without knowing it?
Again, I'll come back to the old simple.
No, you can't go back. This is a really hard question. Like, it's very unfair to ask this of you. But it's the most important question. Why? And the trick with why is you don't ask it once. You ask it over and over and over again. And every time you use the answer of your previous question to pose the new question. And you keep going until you find that one thing at the core of your game, that one thing that is beautiful, that one thing that is special, that is different, that is exciting, that you want to talk about. What is it that you want to talk about? Have you watched E3? So in the Sony press conference, there was a really, really interesting thing. There was this guy called Sean Murray. And Sean Murray is from England. He's a really shy guy. And he asked Sony if he could go on stage at E3 to talk about his new game called No Man's Sky. Now, No Man's Sky is possibly the most anticipated indie game of this moment. It's called No Man's Sky. It's a space sim. This guy got on stage and he stood like this. He's like, "Hi, I'm Sean Murray, and I work for a little studio called Hello Games." And it kind of hurt, right? He was nervous, and he wasn't sure what he was doing there, and he was scared. And at some point, he started talking about No Man's Sky, and he said, "You know, it's inspired by great science fiction books like Heinlein and Asimov." And he started talking about science fiction books. And as he was talking about science fiction books, he took his arm off his shoulder, and he stood up, and he looked into the camera. You know why? Because that's the part of truth. He believes in this. He believes in it. And if you believe in it, you can make anybody believe in it, if you have the right words. But the first thing you need is to know why you believe in your game. If you don't know why you believe in your game, I'm not going to care. Nobody is going to care. The only people that are going to care are the people that look at the screenshot and go like, this could be interesting. That's what you'll get out of it. You need to believe in your game. And if you believe in your game, you can make others believe. Then also, why am I pitching it to you? Why am I pitching this to you? Right? Why am I not pitching this to somebody else? Why am I pitching this to Polygon? Why am I pitching this to Touch Arcade, which is an iOS website? Why am I pitching this to the New York Times? Why am I doing that, and how can I use that? Like, why would I pitch my game to the New York Times? Well, I would pitch my game to the New York Times if I want to go outside of the gaming press, right? I want to reach mainstream audiences. Ridiculous Fishing, game for as many people as possible. So we don't stay in the gaming press, we go outside of it. We email the Huffington Post. We email the New York Times, the Washington Post. We email newspapers in the Netherlands, in Germany, in Belgium, in France, in England. We email The Guardian. We talk to them. Why? Because that was what we wanted to reach. We needed to reach them. So think about what you want to achieve and then why you're pitching it to a specific person. So this is actually a really simple question, but sometimes it has an interesting answer. You need to think about, when you pitch to somebody, what do they get out of it? This sounds really weird, but effectively that's really what you're doing. You're telling the press that if they write about your game, people will be interested. And that's the value that you're promising them, right? You're promising them, if you talk about my game, people will read that and they will love that article. Because you're a good writer, right? Like, you work for this big website, you're probably a good writer. I give you my game, you write about it, it's going to be awesome. That's the promise. You need to think about that promise, though. Like, is that true? Do you have an interesting story there? And if it's not true, what other value are you offering them? Is there something for them? Do they gain anything by writing about your game? The answer to that, very honestly, is almost always yes. You'd have to make a pretty terrible game for that answer to be no. And then if the game is really terrible, there's actually value in that, because writing about really terrible games, people like that too. So you don't have to worry too much about this, but it's something that you want to think about, because when you're pitching your game to gamers, the answer for this becomes a lot harder, right? When you buy my game, what is my promise to you? When you buy Ridiculous Fishing, what does Vlambeer promise you? Well, we promise you a game where you pay once, there's no in-app purchases. It's a fishing game about fishing with machine guns. It has a store in which you can upgrade things, so it's probably a game with progression. You can see that in the screenshots. It's a game where you play a bearded guy who can buy hats, because in the various screenshots, he wears different hats. Whether that's important or not, nobody knows, but it's part of the promise. You will get hats, which is awesome. Video gamers love hats. But here's a number of promises we make, right? And you need to be very careful about the promises you're sending out, because if you break a promise, people don't trust you. People don't trust you, they won't buy your next game, right? And this one is actually kind of hard. When you talk to the press and you tell them, please write about my game, what does this cost the press? That sounds like a really weird question, because it doesn't really cost the press anything, right? But it does. A member of the press, their day goes like this. They wake up, they check Twitter. If there's anything that everybody's talking about, they go to their website, they see if somebody else is writing about that. If not, they write that article. After that's done, they go and check their email. They check their email and they get a few hundred emails a day. And most of them are pretty terrible emails. Bad subject lines. Company releases video game made for iOS about, and then like the screen isn't wide enough so you can't read the rest. Delete. Right? Next. Read this email. Revolutionary new game for delete. Next email, no subject, delete. And they do that. They do that for like 15 minutes or so, and then they got rid of all the bad emails. They're left with like 20 good emails. So they start reading them. And then they get to pick like maybe 3, maybe 5, depending on the website. Some websites allow you to write X amount of articles. Some websites need you to write X amount of articles per day. So they have a number of articles they can fill, and they're going to fill that with the best stuff they can find. If that is not your email, they're going to skip on you. Sorry, but that's just the way it's going to be, okay? So you need to be writing the best email. So I asked you a number of questions, right? So let's try pitching again. Who think they had a good pitch? Please go. Somebody, can you give him a microphone?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. So while you were telling us who, what, why, I was actually writing my pitch, and based on what the ideas you were giving me. Okay. So here's my pitch. So I'm Sumit, founder of Blacklight, an indie game house, development house from Delhi, India. After months of labor, we have made a new free-to-play game, Word Shift, a simplified, fun way to enjoy English anagram puzzles. It already has 500,000 downloads on Google Play Store and has been featured on Google Play Editor's Choice game throughout the world. Attached are some of the screenshots and teasers video of it. Please try it and send us your feedback. We love hearing about it.
You thought that was a good pitch? You have a number of hands. Because somebody who didn't like the pitch, tell me why you thought it wasn't a good pitch. Go for it.
He was telling you to see a screenshot that you couldn't see.
Yes, that's a very good point of criticism. Correct. Did anybody catch the name of the game? He sort of cheated. He did it before he started pitching, right? And he used more than 3 sentences. But in effect, you told me everything I need to know, right? Who's excited about the game?